Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I want to take a deeper look into the Ruby Amethyst lists that were popping up over the first weekend that the Helium and Photosphere ban was in effect. That was April 12th and 13th. There were a number of Ruby Amethyst lists that ended up winning big tournaments and doing very well, placing in top 4. And what's interesting is a lot of them are actually quite diverse. There's no cookie cutter build. We're going to take a look at some of the variations and discuss maybe some of the meta implications and where these decks are excelling, right? Because again, if you're testing online, you know already you're taking against Diablo. Ruby Amethyst generally has a decent matchup spread into everything else, and so you just need a few little tech options to perform really well if you know the ins and outs of your deck and, of course, the matchups and metagame. So starting off here, we've got a very interesting list by Joel K, who ended up winning this tournament at the Lore Keepers Inn, 30 players, so not huge, but not necessarily too small either. And when you take a look at their list, it's very interesting for a number of notable reasons. The first one is, I think, what's kind of becoming an accepted standard is the inclusion of Pegasus on 2 now. A 3-1 body, even though we seem to be going into a little bit of a steel meta. We may be just going into a straight up Ruby Amethyst meta, honestly, now. But you do need to tech against the Diablos, and this card is a great card to do that. We know that historically Ruby Amethyst has had a troubled matchup into Emerald, right? I've talked about this many times across the last couple of videos I've made, and it will continue to be a point of contention moving forward. But the Pegasus really does help. Check that. Of course, you are still weak to like Emerald Steel if they go shift Diablo, Sing Storm, Sing Strength or something with 2 characters, or not even 2, just 1. It outs your Pegasus and you need the other answer. But in this deck, 1 of Peter Pan Shadow. Okay, you've seen anywhere from 1 to 4 copies of this card being included. We talked about this as a tech option. You've got 3 Genies, you've got the Elsas, you've got the Brawls, and of course you've got Be Prepared. In this particular list, you've also got Medusas and Sisus. So a lot of the uninkable removal right down here on the top end, which is it's kind of risky to play, I'm not going to lie, right? Because you see these cards too early, especially against a discard matchup, right? You're yes, you can discard them, but like you're not able to probably play out the game the way you want, right? Because you're forced to keep these cards in your hand. You're inking cards you may want to play, especially on curve, and it could be a little bit awkward. But this player was able to make it work. I will say Ruby Amethyst is one of the best, if not the best, list at utilizing this 12 one-drop package with the library. Whether or not you see library or not, it doesn't really matter. But this package is just so strong, and it's one of the key reasons, if not the key reason, in my opinion, why Amethyst is so strong, is because you have such a robust one-drop package that, think about it this way, guys, right? When you drop these cards, you're either putting on early pressure or, I mean, this list is not playing the crab, but if you're playing crab, you can convert these cards into things that will take out opposing threats, right? Like a crab with a broom takes out a daisy duck, for example, right? And survives that interaction. And then we all know Diablo becoming a 3-1 with the crab is also pretty strong. But all of these different interactions are very powerful because these cards will replace themselves. They can potentially challenge. Obviously, they're burning or questing for 1 and then probably trading out for lore. But the nice thing is they convert themselves back into card advantage, right? So you're fine with going like 3 1-drops in your opening hand, play a 1-drop on turn 1, on turn 2. You don't necessarily need to play Mim or Pegasus, right? Because these could be just ink, but you go 2 1-drops. And the nice thing is you don't have to worry because you know that these 1-drops will convert themselves into card draw, which likely draws you into more efficient higher end cards when you actually need to see that replenishment of your hand. And this is why this Amethyst package is so strong. You couple that with the library and you're turning those 1 draws into 2 draws, which is just, card advantage. Card advantage is what card games are all about, really, right? Like, I mean, if the more the options you have, the better you're able to respond and deal with threats in the game state. So this early game package sets you up so well, and that's why one of the reasons why Amethyst is such a strong color. The snake you've seen being dropped out of favor from a lot of players, myself included, because again, similar to what I just said, you probably don't want to bounce back these 1-drops all too often. You want to maintain them. The days of that 2-drop 3/3 body, like from set 2, set 3, where that was like a really powerful thing, is not necessarily as powerful now as it was before. It's still good, but there is risk that this is your 2-drop and then your 1-drop gets taken out by a Steel Song, right, with Cindy Storm, let's say, or something like that, and your 2-drop play is dead, right? Hopefully you have another 1-drop to follow up with, but the snake becomes dead. The reason why snake was so popular and powerful back in the days, before Genie, we were playing like 3 to 4 rabbits, 4 goats, crabs, and you had much more utilization to bounce cards that you wanted to bounce for the snake. And this card was good in the early game because it would develop an overstated card on turn 2, but also good in the late game because it would bounce back relevant cards for reuse, as well as abilities that would proc when they leave the field, like crab, rabbit, and goat. And it was just a really good utility card. over time, you can see with 1 rabbit, no crab, 4 goats, this card's utilization with bouncing stuff back is a little bit less. The good thing is you can bounce back a lot of these top end threats, including the Elsa here, in order to just drop them and get their abilities off, right? Redrop the Scar, it has Rush, take all the damage off of it and just take out an exerted board. Bounce back a Sisu, shift it off again, or bounce back a shifted Sisu, replay it, right? Wipe a board out, redrop Maui, redrop Medusa, etc., and just get all these abilities over again. So Snake still has a lot of utility, because even in my lists, I do like to run like at least 2 Snake, because I don't want to play it on 2, but I want to have it in the back pocket for later on in the game where I can recycle my abilities. It's still very strong for that. Still 4 Fox. You've seen this sometimes be included in lists, sometimes at 3, sometimes at 4. It definitely was, in my opinion, the best Amethyst card for the longest time. I'm not sure what I would give that title to now. Fox is still up there, but still a very good card. Only 1 Shadow, 4 of the Sisu Emboldened Warrior. There are lists that run none of these. It's really dependent upon, again, your metagame and your choices. It is a very powerful card still. And if you don't have them, I would pick them up, because I think they're probably at all-time lows, just like a $2 again or something like that. It's definitely worth having a playset, because it's still a very powerful card. 3 Genie instead of 4 with the 1 Rabbit, which is interesting. I think it is kind of nice, because if you do see this 1 Rabbit, you got a lot of ways to bounce it and just have this draw engine in your hand consistently, instead of like 4 Genies where you're kind of just locked into, well, I have to play this Genie, and I don't really want to bounce it, but if I have to, I guess I will. 4 goats, of course, only 2 Elsa, 5th Spirit, so more of a toolbox top end here with the Maui, the Madame Medusa, the Scar, and the Sisu. 4 Brawl, 4 Friends, 4 Libraries, and 3 Be Prepareds. So I would say this is fair. Normally, you're seeing 4 Be Prepareds again, but because you're playing Sisu, Madame Medusa, Scar, and a decently robust character removal package, I think the 3 Be Prepareds works out well. So a very interesting list. Congrats for winning that. Let's go on to the next one here. This is the second place list, losing out to DKP's Ruby Sapphire Shark build. And this one, I'm a huge fan of this. I love this list. So somebody posted in my comments that these guys were brothers, a bunch of the MC guys. So congrats on them. Obviously a very skilled and talented family for all of the brothers to make top cut, or one made top 16, I think, on Steel Song, and the other 2 were top 4, both playing Ruby Amethyst. But I like this list a lot. Only 10 1-drops, not the 12. Still on Snakes, but not 4 on 3. Only 3 Fox, 2 Crab, so relying less on the Crab boost here. 4 Genies, no Rabbits, also on the Sisu package with 3 of the big Sisu. 4 Peter Pan Shadowfinder. And this is a very interesting inclusion. Not 1, not 3, 4. Just going all out. I want to see my Peter Pan Shadow. 14 uninkables in total. And this is really nice, because we talked about Peter Pan Shadow with Iago being a great counterplay package into opposing Genies, into opposing Diablos, but even better than that, the Maui Half Shark. And we talked about this, obviously, in our review of the Battle Bear Tournament when we looked at this list initially. But Maui Shark coming down and instantly having Rush is massive. This card being a 7/5, it will run over opposing Iagos. It will run over anything the opponent has, more or less. Very, very strong interaction. And then you proc the ability when it comes down, right? If your Peter Pan Shadow is on board, to just get back an action, which is really nice. And then, of course, you can continue to burn your opponent, right, with the passive lore gain whenever you play that action. So you have a number of cards that gain the rush ability thanks to the Shadow Finder here. You've got Genie Wish Fulfilled. You've got Moana, which is another card that's very interesting. I totally overlooked this myself. When I saw this list, I went out and I bought, it was only like 80 cents each. I bought 3 copies of the foil Moana Island Explorer, because I'm like, yeah, you know what, this makes sense, because not only is this coming in with Evasive as a 4/3, but if your Peter Pan Shadow is on board, it also has Rush. But the other ability actually is really nice. Whenever this character challenges another character, chosen characters of yours gets +3 this turn. So you can imagine the surprise factor that nobody was expecting this card, right? Like nobody. Who's gonna, like, nobody knew this card even existed, really. But if you have a Peter Pan Shadow on board, and then, you're like, okay, yeah, let me, quest out or whatever, and then you instantly drop this Moana, and then you're like, okay, now my Moana will take out a threat, give +3 to my Peter Pan, if not something else, give +3 to a Diablo, which is, I'm surprised, you might want to play more Diablo, but I guess with only 2 Crab, it's fair. But, give +3 to Diablo, give +3 to Fox, to Snake, whatever I have on board, or my Peter Pan Shadow, and then I have a 5/3 Challenger, right, with Evasive, that's really good. It makes your Peter Pan instantly able to take out opposing Genies. Your Moana can take out the genie, right? With the 3 willpower, it will survive. So a lot of great interaction here. Counter genie play, right? And just synergizes so well with the Peter Pan Shadow. And then, like we said, the Maui Shark, man, what a check to the genie. Like if your opponent has genie, and I talked about this in my Amethyst review, right? I'm like, if your opponent sees that you have a Peter Pan Shadow on board, they now have to think, do I quest with my genie? Do I quest with my evasives? Because if you have the Iago, if you have the Moana now, if you have the Maui Shark, like I'm not going to be in a good spot if you just drop this thing and rush into my genie. I lose my genie, and then you get some, nice ability off, whether it's recurring in action, give +3 strength to take out something else. Very, very interesting. And all the meantime, if you're just sitting there and you're like, I just don't want to turn my stuff sideways. Okay, well, I'm building up to a Be Prepared. I'm building up to a big Sisu wipe. I'm building up to just more card advantage and, get my libraries online, proc my 1-drops when they quest, banish them. And this is why the mirror match can be a little dicey, because you want to be able to cycle. And this is another reason why the Mim cards might still be good, is because obviously you can quest with something, bounce it back, replay it so it's in a readied state, and then that way you're not leaving your stuff vulnerable. So a lot of intricacies in this matchup here. I like the one of Finders Keepers as well. A random card you can bring back with the Maui Half Shark as well to gain massive advantage and gain some lore off of it. And this card just feels safe, right? You draw 3 on a turn that you might want to take, the turn off, so to speak. You don't want to aggressively quest out or turn stuff sideways. This card can be very, very good for that. Let's move on to the next list. We've got a first place Ruby Amethyst list by Jackson Tran. This was at a 72 player tournament. I think this was in Europe. No, this is in the United States still. Okay. And this list again on Pegasus. Actually, let's go back. This list was not on Pegasus. The only 2-drop, this is very interesting actually, the only 2-drop was the Madam Mim Snake. And with a total of only 10 1-drops, the odds that you have the 3 1-drops in hand is pretty low. So, there's a good chance that you miss on turn 2, because, hopefully you have at least 2 1-drops, but with this being your only 2-drop, especially if your 1-drop gets outed, you can't play Snake on 2 anyways. So you may just go turn 2 with no play, or turn 2 develop another 1-drop, which again is fine. The 1-drops are very strong for that, and they replace themselves. So it is an interesting option. I thought about the Cuzco again, but I just think it is just that much more inefficient. The 1-2 body doesn't matter compared to the 0-1 of Diablo. The Diablo being 1 is just so much more beneficial, like 1 cost. And the Cuzco, while it's nice for it to replace itself, it just feels like playing it for 2 doesn't feel as great now. It feels a little bit slow. That being said, if you're playing the Moana and the Crab, maybe there is a world where you play 4 Diablo, 4 Cuzco, because you can proc the strength boost on those characters and instantly get card replacement right while taking out a threat. Anyways, Jackson's list here is actually what a list that I would have probably built similar to, because I would have gone with the Pegasus. No Snake in this list here. I like the 4 Crabs. I like the 3 Peter Pans. I like the 2 Iago. Although I will say, if you're playing Iago and Shark, there is an option to say you just go straight up with Shark and don't play any Iagos. The 4 Goats, the 2 Elsas, I would probably go with 3 or 4 Elsas myself. But yeah, if I was building a Ruby Amethyst list, I think I would build mine like Jackson. I like this one a lot. 3 Maui Hero to All and 3 Maui Half Shark. Again, you could make a case to go with 4 Half Shark if you're not going with any Iagos. But this card is still decent. It, again, depends on your meta. Depends on if you expect a lot of things targeting this thing to trigger its Vanish ability. But like I talked about in the Amethyst review video, this card comes in with the Shadow on board, and you're instantly getting advantage. And then if they out it with an action or whatever targeting it, it's fine, because you've already got your value off of the Iago. And if they don't, then you just have a massive body on board that's overstated. I don't know what it is with Amethyst having these overstated cards all the time. It's actually crazy. But I'm here for it. 3 Brawl, 1 Dragonfire, a nice tech option to get back off Half Shark. There's so many times where you're I just wish I could have a way to out this readied character. And while Elsa can be nice, sometimes you just want that instant, let me just get her off the board, and the Dragonfire is great for that. 2 Finders Keepers. I like 1, but I can understand, more card advantage is always great. And the reason why 1 is, to me, seems okay is because you play 4 friends. And sometimes, even if you have this in your discard, you still go for the friends, just for the fact that you can sing it with a crab or something if you don't need to challenge. The 1 lore on the crab for 2 cards, which one is more valuable? you know, maybe you do want to take a turn off, air quotes, and just play the Finder's Keepers so that you can draw 3, right? Especially if you get it back for free off Maui Half Shark. You don't need to develop any threats or anything, just draw cards and be ready for the next turn. 4 B preps and 3 libraries. 3 to 4 libraries I think are okay. I think sometimes when I play 4, I often find myself just like seeing I don't know what it is about library. I end up seeing like whenever I see 1, I see 3. Like, and then sometimes I see 0, even though I play 4. So like sometimes I'm like, do I just want to play 3? Because I don't want to see like 3 of them at the same time. I'd rather see like 1 or 2 of them like at states in the game when it actually matters. I don't know what it is about me and this card. It's like either I see them all or I see none of them. It's really strange, but I like 3. I probably would go to 3, not 4, just because of my experience with them. You know, because even if you don't see the library, like you're still in good shape because you still do what Ruby Amethyst wants to do. If you do see library, right, now it just adds an extra layer of interaction with your opponent where they're like, you have to take this card out because it's, you know, gaining you card advantage potentially, but it's also gaining you passive lore. So like, I got to take it out because even if I turn my stuff sideways, if you start moving stuff to the library and challenging my stuff, which is now even more relevant since you have ways to instantly get, you know, cards on board and turn them sideways with the rush abilities, with Peter Pan Shadow giving the evasive rush, that it's easier to maintain card advantage, which is another, like, again, layer of interaction with this deck that makes it so strong. The last list, I think, is a top 4 list by Justin here. This was another American tournament, I believe. And it was, where is it? 41 players, 13 uninkables here. But again, another kind of differently built list. We've got 4 Cuscos with 4 crabs and only 9 1-drops. And again, just Cusco as your 2-drop. No Snake, no Pegasus. And I guess, did we take a look at... Hold on one second. No, it was the other list that we're not looking at that had the Lumieres in it. It was the 3rd place list at the Battle Bear tournament, which I don't have loaded up here, but... that is another thing that was very interesting to see. So where were we? Jackson and Justin here. Again, this could be something that you could consider. The Cusco and the Diablo all being cards that replace themselves. The Crab obviously gives you great value off of this, but also if you were playing something like the Moana, if your Peter Pan Shadow gives a Moana Rush, give the Cusco +3, becomes a 4/2. That's pretty nice. Again, runs over Daisy Duck and things like that, and survives too. So you can just see like Ruby Amethyst can be built and teched to basically deal with any matchup. The aggro matchup, the discard matchup, the Ruby Sapphire matchup with the Dinka Famsless, which I think would be a tough matchup, simply because you have to maintain, or you have to not maintain, but you have to consider so many different angles of attack. The Pirate's Life, which again this list is playing, which is very interesting. The McDuck Manors, the Shark, those kinds of things. And that's where, like, you know, those One of Dragonfires can really come in handy, because what else is taking out Shark? Not Medusa, right? Not Elsa, probably, if you tap it down. Like, there's so many difficult things to interact with in the Ruby Sapphire matchup, which is, again, why DKP probably won, knowing his deck very well, taking out that 130-player tournament. But onto this list here, the 3 Peter Pan Shadow and the 3 Sisu Emboldened Warrior. So a very robust 3-drop package here. And then on 4, no genies. Just going with the 4 rapids instead. And what's interesting here is also no goats. He's saying, you know what, like, I value these 3 drops. Why come into play and gain 1 lore? I just would rather play 3 of the Sisu because it helps with maybe big Sisu shift. Also, this card is just good in general. And then for Elsa, 2 Maui and 2 Madame Medusa. 3 Half Shark, right? The Peter Pan Half Shark combination seems to be a thing moving forward. 1 of the big Sisu, 4 Brawl, 2 Finders Keepers again, 4 Friends on the other side. I like the Pirate's Life inclusion in Ruby Amethyst, and this might just be like me going with like a safety first approach, but I like having the option to be like, let me claw back some lore, and then I have this card in my discard where I know I can always get it back with Shark almost instantaneously if I have Peter Pan up, right? Drop Shark, rush into something, get back the Pirate's Life, hopefully sing it if I'm in a dicey scenario where my opponent could potentially win the game in the next turn, claw back the 2 lore, and, you know, now I can survive for another turn, and maybe that's all I need to kind of push for game, right? Because again, in these aggro matchups, you know, they go down to the wire. It's like you're getting down to the turn where either your opponent wins the next turn or they're going to get completely blown out of the water. How many times have you seen aggro matchups where they get to like 17, 18, 19 and they just can't push over the line because the Ruby decks or the Steel decks just get to the point, the critical mass point, where they're just like, I'm just removing everything you play now, right? I mean, it was more prevalent in the Sapphire Ruby meta, but still relevant to this day. Only 2 libraries, 3 be prepared, a decent list, but again, you can see very different from the way the other lists are built. And while you're saying like, well, Quantum, like 90% of these cards are the same. Yeah, but it's the 10% difference that will actually make the difference when you're in a big tournament. Having that tech card, not having that card that's very vulnerable. Like, it's a cycle, right? Because Yu-Gi-Oh was the same way. I'm sure Magic is the same. I haven't played Magic in years, but like, a card becomes super meta, Diablo, Genies, etc. People start overly teching for it, and those cards become absolutely terrible, right? Like, if you're playing Genie and you're like, it just gets outed every time, you're just like, I'm just not gonna play Genie anymore. And so going back to Rabbit is, and I talked about this right on the release of Genie in the last set for Azure at Sea, right? And everyone was like, oh my god, Genie's so amazing. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great card. But then, if you actually sit down and think about it and look at it, and you're like, Genie's great, but like, he's very vulnerable and he's uninkable. And Rabbit is just like more safe, right? Like, whenever I play a Rabbit, I'm just like chilling. I'm just like, great, right? Remove it. Be my guest, right? It replaces itself. It forces you to remove it, right? You waste tempo removing it. You waste an interaction removing it. And I just get +2 off of the Rabbit, or +1 technically, because it replaces itself and then draws me another card. And yes, I lose some tempo because of the Rabbit, but even better, like, if you don't deal with the Rabbit, like, if like every cycle of the Rabbit represents +2, right? Or I shouldn't say +2, but like 2 draws. So like, if I play Rabbit, I draw. When it leaves play, I draw. And then if it survives because I bounced it, right, I replay it, I draw. And then when it leaves play, I draw. 1 Rabbit equals 4 cards. Think about any other game, right, that would give you +4. Like 4 draws off of 1 card. And in a game like Lorcana, where the game is still slow to develop, this is a very broken interaction, right? It's why Rabbit and the staying power of Rabbit will always be relevant. It is a slow card, though. A quest for 1. Genie is much faster and much more aggressive, but it's much more vulnerable, right? So it's very interesting to see the balance of the game. And if you're playing and you're noticing your Genie's getting blown out every time because they're super vulnerable to sharks and stuff, I mean, you want to turn your Rabbit sideways too, to be fair, but you really want to turn your Genie sideways to get the 2 lore. And then they just get blown up by a half shark, or like I was saying, you see a Peter Pan Shadow on board. Now you're like, it's like set 1, right? Where you saw the small Tinkerbell, the steel 3-drop Tinkerbell on board, and you're like, well, I don't really want to turn my stuff sideways, because if you do have the shift Tinkerbell, you just wipe my board. And it's the same thing, right? Like, you see this Peter Pan Shadow, it's almost like a shift for the Maui shark. You're like, well, I see you have that Peter Pan Shadow, and I don't want to turn my stuff sideways, because if you do drop that Maui shark and you get back a Finder's Keepers or a Friends or a Pirate's Life, it's like, it's really bad for me. It's pretty strong, right? Like, think of the meta. You're literally stopping your opponent from questing. You might be in a Ruby Amethyst meta again with this heavy tech against, or Ruby Amethyst being in a much better place to combat discard, right? The Brawls, the Pegasus, the Genie, the Peter Pan Shadow, the Maui Half Shark. Because if a deck like Ruby Sapphire can survive with no card draw, right, losing the Hiram, but they're like, I gain advantage off of Half Shark, I would think that Ruby Amethyst could do that even better. Because the Ruby Sapphire list can't play Peter Pan Shadow. Obviously, they do other things better, but this deck can. So I can like get the value of Half Shark right away, get that card advantage back from Half Shark right away. And what's even more crazy is Half Shark gets back Friends, Half Shark gets back Finders Keepers. Not only do I get +1 off the Half Shark, right, or it replaces itself when it gets back to the action, but then that action draws me even more cards, right? And you saw this when we talked about, if you watched that video that I made back with DLC Melbourne, where DKP won that event with his Ruby Sapphire list. And it was in the Clement matchup, or Clement, however you say his name, where he ended up beating Jesse in that controversial moment because he turned the interaction of taking something out with Half Shark, which was the controversial moment, but that aside, bring back a Develop Your Brain, and then Develop Your Brain turns itself into a brand new card, right? Because it's a 1-cost action that replaces itself. Friends is almost the same thing, right? You understand that card advantage? It's better than Develop Your Brain. I mean, yes, it costs 3, Develop Your Brain costs 1, so it's not better in that sense, but it's draw 2, develop is look at the top 2, take 1. Which you can argue is the same thing, because like I still scry through 2, so I'm getting through the same amount of cards. I just choose 1 instead of getting both. And with the Friends interaction, you probably draw 2 is nice. But in a Ruby Amethyst deck, I mean, whatever you're drawing is likely going to be pretty powerful anyways. Even these 1-drops, they continue to just be a powerhouse. But I will say, I want to experiment more with that Moana and maybe a Cusco and Diablo package. I think that could be really, really strong. Like 4 Peter Pan Shadow, 3 Moana, 4 Crab, and just go all out. Like, yeah, go ahead, turn your stuff sideways. Are people going to start teching for this Peter Pan Shadow? Because it's popping up, and it is very powerful with the Maui Half Shark. As we say that, the final, this is the final list now. I'm pretty sure, because yeah, we're going back to Joel K, which was the one, yeah, with the scar. So I love it. Old, reliable. No set 7 cards. None of this nonsense. No Peter Pan Shadow. Let me prove to you that Ruby Amethyst can still do what Ruby Amethyst wants to do. We've got Lady Tremaines. We got Madame Medusas. We even got Flynn Rider and the Snake. This is literally the list from last format. Sometimes including Elsa, sometimes not. This one only had 2 Elsas. But, you know, robust, very efficient. You know, play stuff on 1, play stuff on 2. Only 2 libraries as well. Don't necessarily need to see it. But on 2 genies and 4 rabbits, 4 goats, right? The bounce package. How good is Flynn Rider going to be? This card dropped to historic lows, I'm pretty sure. We take a look. I think they have price charting on here. Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at that. If you don't have your Flynn Riders, it might be a good time to pick them up. I don't think Flynn Rider is particularly great right now, but that being said, you know, he still does what he wants to do sometimes. Like getting +3 off of this thing could make the difference in the end game, right? Especially if you anticipate the Ruby Sapphire list to be around still, like Dinka Fam's list, which did very well, obviously, at the Battle Bear tournament. Like, this card can be what you need to see in order to, well, because they're not playing Hiramon 4, they're going for Grandma, right? So, I don't know. It's here or there because Grandma would check it. But then again, your Sisu checks that, or your Fox if you bounce back a 1-drop. So, yeah, so many interactions in the game that are very, very interesting. So, just proving Ruby Amethyst can do a lot in the metagame here. And this one was first place, by the way, Old Reliable, coming in first place in this tournament, beating out Steel Song, making its way through the Emerald meta, which I love. Man, I talked about this already. Like, look at this. Oh my goodness. This guy was teched for the Emerald Mirrors. Probably why he was the one that came out on top. But into Ruby Amethyst, man, you're not playing the discard package, right? So, you know, you're solely relying on, I mean, you're a mid-range Emerald Amethyst deck, and I think that just gets beat. Like, Ruby Amethyst is just a stronger mid-range deck, right? Like, this Ursula Deceiver, or excuse, Ursula Sea Witch Queen is really nice. And these interactions are very nice, but into Maui Shark, like, the fact that Shark can take out this Ursula Sea Witch Queen and live puts the Sea Witch Queen in a bit of a difficult position. I need one more foil Half Shark, and I mean, they're like, what, $100 Canadian, but I think I've seen a couple for 85. Maybe it's time to buy the final foil one, because playing 4 Half Shark, even into the next set, like, I mean, obviously we don't know what's in the next set yet, but like, Maui Half Shark is, again, one of those cards, you're looking at it and you're like, you know, there's always going to be actions, just like Ariel, there's always going to be songs. And with Brendan DeCanio on the design team, from what I understand, like, I know he loves himself some Amber, so, you know, it's a good chance that Amber Steel Song gets some good support in the near future. I'm just saying. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know what you think. Are you on the Ruby Amethyst meta? Are you a fan? Are you like, no, not again, please? Would you want to go back to the Sapphire meta? I do think Emerald is still in a very good spot, but as usual, I think the Emerald decks, they almost lose to themselves a little bit, but they are very strong still. If the Diablo goes unchecked, and this is the problem, right? Like, you have to play so many cards to tech against the Diablo because you cannot let that card go unchecked. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below if you made it this far. Thank you, man, for watching. Quantum is out.